in some interesting data. So it's sort of Facebook Alumni Day today. The next three speakers are all alumni of Facebook, starting with the next two, who have a very well-received, people are quite passionate about this platform that they've created called Quora. How many of you use Quora? I found in my research, Quora is a really valuable sort of library of sorts. If there's a question that I have that I feel just too dumb to tweet out and ask, the reason I feel dumb now is people will tweet back, go to this link on Quora, you idiot. It used to be just Google it, moron. Now it's, find it on Quora, because usually someone very smart has answered the question for you. So I'd like to bring out Charlie Cheever and Adam D'Angelo together for the first time on the stage, the founders of Quora. Welcome. So you guys sort of had like a class reunion back there with, Brett and the next speaker, Dave, and there's even other folks from Facebook back there. They all said, "Why did you leave?" Why did you leave?
So I'd been at Facebook for about 3 years and got to the point where I felt like I was ready to start my own company. I'd learned a lot and felt like I was in a good position to do something that would really be successful.
But you couldn't do that inside of this massive juggernaut that was, you guys had built the platform essentially with others at Facebook, and one would think that you might then build something on that platform.
Yeah, I think for me this seemed like a different kind of a problem, because I think Facebook is, the best service in the world for connecting you to your friends and people you know, and it felt like part of the core of what we're doing is sort of connecting you with people who you don't know, but who have like sort of the knowledge that you seek. And so I think it made more sense to sort of attack that kind of problem like with an independent effort.
So give us a bit of a snapshot of where Quora is right now. Like, you've been out for how long? How many people are using the service, if you can tell me? How large a library you've created of content?
So we launched last April, and so it's been about a little over 2 years, and we don't share numbers. We have this focus on quality, and so a lot of these companies that they focus a lot on their numbers. There's always these places where you can trade off.
You don't like to talk about numbers, is what you're telling me. So how many people really do use Quora?
It's a lot.
But you're not going to tell us. That's okay. I'm just ribbing you. How do you judge success then as a company? What are the things that you pay attention to?
So we focus almost completely on quality. So when when you were saying before that people, you'd rather see something written by an expert on Quora than doing a Google search yourself. That to us is evidence that the quality of the content on Quora is higher, and that's really what people are looking for. So we have this goal where every question page, we're trying to get it to be the best source on the web for someone who has that question. And so we look at whether one of our question pages with all these answers from experts, whether that's the best possible thing for someone to see when they have that question to tell whether we're succeeding.
How do you know? I mean, this is a very, very subjective thing to determine quality. And very early in the days of Google, webmasters, seems like such an old word, but webmasters would get very upset that they didn't have the top page for a particular thing, the top answer for a particular question. And Google would say, well, we're not determining your quality. It's, this complicated set of links and this thing we call PageRank. Do you have a PageRank per se for this content? How do you choose what is high quality?
So we have things that you might think are equivalent to something like PageRank, but the most important thing for us is getting all this data into our system and onto the web that wasn't already there, that helps us figure out what's high quality and what's not. So we take an answer about search and we'll go and show it to the people who know a lot about web search, and they can go and vote on it, and we'll get signal from how they react to this answer. And so by letting experts judge each other's answers, we get a lot of information about how high quality a particular piece of content is.
Do you ever envision these experts, some of whom I was talking to a fellow who's here, who is, in his words, obsessed with Quora. He puts a lot of energy and time into it, as do many, many people. Do you ever imagine that there is a model where they might be remunerated for that energy and effort?
It's definitely within the set of possibilities. Right now, we're completely the company is completely focused on growth and getting as much high quality knowledge into the system as possible. And we're pretty confident that if we can do that in the long run, there will be some way for us to make money and some way for us to share some of that money with contributors if the economics work out.
Last night we were talking to Michael Roth, who runs a multi-billion-dollar marketing conglomerate, and we were talking about how companies start, and they say exactly what you just said, which is we're just focusing on growth and we're focusing on quality. We'll figure out the money thing later. Have you really not thought about it?
We think about it. I think there's a lot of potential with advertising. At a minimum, all of these content sites are able to make pretty reasonable amounts of revenue off of advertising. Mm-hmm. But I think the most likely, the best revenue model for us will be something where something that hasn't been invented for another company, because Quora is pretty unique, and something that really taps into that would be the best for us.
What are the misconceptions about Quora that bother you?
Well, I know one thing that was sort of a thing people said for a while was like, oh, it's really great if you have questions about Silicon Valley or really tech-focused things. And I think one thing that's been exciting to see over the last months and year is just like a real broadening of the kind of content that's on the site. So some of the questions I remember from the last few months that I thought were pretty good were things like, what should you do if someone puts a gun to your head? And a former policeman answered that in great detail. The number one thing is stay calm, but you should really read the whole answer. And there's another...
You should give that to the people that I interview.
And there's a bunch of other things, like a lot of really good content around screenwriting. Like the screenwriter for Conan the Barbarian wrote this big piece about what happens when you...
I actually posted about that. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
So I think we started to just see like the site become a really good general resource rather than just something if you had questions in specific areas.
So that the germ of that, when I wrote that piece, was here's a guy who is a screenwriter, right? And it gets a little bit back to the other question that I asked, but who wrote this just extraordinary piece on Quora about what happens when your movie bombs, right? And here's a guy who writes for a living. That's how he makes money. Who poured his soul into this piece that's on the Quora platform. He has his own blog, but somehow did not then take that piece and put it back on his own site and figure out a way to monetize it or make money from that. As this content expands, as you point out, do you see part of what Quora might do is organize it in a way that it becomes a media product, for a la Mike McHugh and Flipboard? Could you see it as a media experience that someone wades through and enjoys in some way, or is it still more query driven?
Yeah, no, that's actually one thing that we learned really early on, was just that lots of people would come back to the site not to post questions or post answers, but just because they found the stuff that they were seeing there pretty interesting to read. And so a long-term focus for us is just to make the site a pretty interesting place to read and to support that group. I also think that's part of the reason why people like to write on Quora, is because we can like take the writing about whatever topic, be it screenwriting or cooking or some narrow technical thing, and get that in front of the people that want to see it and would be interested by it.
You have a sort of certain license arrangement around the content on Quora. Can you describe that?
Yep. So all content posted by Quora. So first of all content is owned by the author of the content, and by default, if anyone writes something on Quora, any other Quora user has permission to go and post that content on their blog or on their own web page, or quote it in an email, or basically do anything they want with it as long as they link back to it and credit the original author.
But can they do that in a commercial setting?
Yep.
Have you seen Quora-driven content spam? In other words, people just setting up multiple WordPress blogs and fulfilling it full of Quora content, which is high quality, and then running AdSense on the side of it and calling it a day and getting the check?
Yeah, so in the early days, Wikipedia...
I mean, if you haven't seen that, I'll all of a sudden believe in the human race again.
Yeah, so Wikipedia has a similar kind of content license, and in the early days of the web, there were all these spam farms with Wikipedia content, and eventually Google figured out that those were not the real content and stopped sending any traffic to them. So it'd be the same thing for us. Yeah. It's just Google's more sophisticated now, so there's not as much of an incentive.
I was asked, when I asked for questions from you guys on my site, another consistent question very similar to the Google Plus question was, where's our API and what kind of a development ecosystem can you see coming out of the Quora platform?
Yeah. We definitely want to make an API. Both Adam and I worked on the Facebook API when we worked there, and we just basically haven't had time to build it, but we will. In the sort of interim, I think some users who have really wanted to analyze Quora, we've let them sort of scrape the site and collect data that way, and also, like as Adam mentioned, you can copy and paste most stuff from the site and just take it that way, and that it's not like a developer API, but it's a way to get the data out. We're really trying to, get all this knowledge onto the web and then share it wherever people need to see it.
Have you enjoyed the process? You guys seem, like very soft-spoken, and we met when I came down to see you guys, and you really earnest and focused on your work. But raising money means you kind of have to, put on your showman suit a little bit, and running a company means sometimes that you have to, do that. Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd say for us, it's actually worked pretty well to just sort of be authentic and focus on making a really good product. The result of that was that all these venture capitalists and investors were coming to us, and we didn't have to go out and really make a big show and try to sell Quora as something more than it was. We try to let the product just sort of speak for itself and let the users create the content, and so we're happy when we create this whole platform, and then it can turn into this success for everyone.
Those VCs are going to want to know how many people use the service.
Yep.
So just in case you've changed your mind.
Yeah.
No. Okay. If anyone has any questions, we have about a minute left, and as we wait for that, I'm curious if you can break down for me, and I may be asking another question that you can't answer. But given that you have such a growing catalog of rich content, can you give us a sense of where people come from? In other words, are you getting more people from, someone saying, "Hey, John, you've got to check it out," or is it coming from search discovering you, or is social a big part of it because you're obviously connected in with Facebook? How does it break down in terms of visitors?
There's a couple of buckets. there's people who just like come to the site every day and log in and read it that way. There's people who come in through search, as you mentioned. That's a big part of the traffic. And there's also social media, like Twitter, especially, and Facebook, and a few other services as well. And then we launched an iPhone app recently, and that's become a big source of.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how that was going. The iPhone app launched just 2 weeks ago, didn't it?
Yeah. So that's been really pretty well received, and people really like just having this really fast access to like this library of information that you can get right to the question they're asking rather than hunting through a bunch of different pages.
Isn't that the iPhone app almost more of a consumption use case in a way?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to type on your phone, so we definitely, when we were building it, we were thinking like primarily about like consumption, but then also we wanted to make it easy for people to vote and rate content so we could get more signal about quality too. Those are the two main things we were thinking of. All
right. Well, we are out of time. Oh, there's a question. Make it quick.
Matt Lindley with Business Insider. So you were talking about potential revenue sources. How do you guys feel about what Stack Overflow has done with like Careers 2.0 and what they're doing with that?
Yeah, so that's definitely that's one possibility. I think that the best kind of monetization systems are deeply integrated into products and sort of align with everything. And if we made a jobs board that would be kind of like off on the side, and it's hard to really it's hard to really capture all the value of Quora if you just have a monetized product next to it. So anything we do, we'd probably try to go for more integration than something like that.
All right, well, please join me in thanking both Charlie and Adam for coming today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.